That's who I am, that's what I'm about, and I wear it on my back. That's with me for my life. This dragon is honor, this dragon on this side is integrity, and within side, in the middle, is the beast. I'm the beast within. If you cross the twin dragons of honor and integrity, the beast within is released. And once the beast is released, the only way you can put him back in his cage is to sate him, which is to feed him, or to slay him, which is to kill him. And that's the way I live my life. If you cross me, you gotta feed me, or you gotta kill me. And it's as simple as that.
In the gritty underbelly of 1980s Liverpool, one name struck terror into the hearts of the city's most ruthless drug barons. Stephen French, known to all as the Devil or the Devilman, a man who turned violence into an art form, amassing a fortune by taxing the underworld's elite. But this is no glorification of crime. This is the raw, unfiltered story of a boy from the streets who became a monster, stared into the abyss, and clawed his way back to humanity. From hammer-wielding enforcer to anti-knife campaigner, Stephen French's life is a cautionary tale of power, regret, and unlikely redemption. Born on October 8, 1958, Stephen French emerged into a world of brewing racial discord within Liverpool's Toxteth district, a place where inequality and unrest shaped the lives of its inhabitants. The very unrest the young Stephen would soon face at just 6 years old. December 10, 1965. Stephen and his 4 siblings were placed in Walton Vale Assessment Center after their mother's emotional collapse. The institution was later closed in the 1980s, following Operation Care, which saw 29 staff arrested and 12 imprisoned for abuse of children. It was within these walls that French endured his first harrowing encounter, fending off an attempted assault by the notorious pedophile Jimmy Savile. In a surge of defiance, he smashed a toy fire engine into Savile's face, drawing blood from his predator. Yet when he reported the ordeal to those in authority, he was met not with protection, but derision and racial venom, branded a
dirty little lying black bastard.
From there, French was relocated to a foster home in Speke, under the roof of a paraplegic man confined to a wheelchair and his spouse. Far from a sanctuary, this new environment perpetuated the cycle of torment. He endured brutal beatings, lashed with curtain wire while bound to a dresser, his young body bearing the marks of unrelenting abuse. His early years unfolded as a relentless carousel of instability within the care system, a journey that began with an innocent 6-year-old altar boy and culminated in the forging of a seething adolescent, haunted by visions of vengeance and lethal intent. By age 11, he reunited with his mother, displaying academic promise that positioned him for success in his 11+ examinations. Yet the shadows of his surroundings proved inescapable, pulling him into a vortex of hardship. As part of the first wave of British-born black children from the Windrush generation, whose parents had arrived post-war to aid in the nation's reconstruction, Stephen and his peers ventured into a hostile, broader society. Their experiences mirrored the marginalization faced by modern immigrant groups like Romanians today. Safety demanded vigilance. They moved in groups to evade the predatory skinhead gangs encircling Toxteth, the Park Lane Boot Boys, Park Row Boot Boys, Lodge Lane Boot Boys, and Aigburth Road Boot Boys. Clad in Fred Perry shirts, Ben Sherman polos, braces, and steel-toed Dr. Martens, these thugs hunted black youths as sport, delivering savage beatings under the guise of territorial dominance. In this crucible of oppression, violence became both shield and weapon. French responded in kind. His school years turned rebellious, marked by clashes with teachers and culminating in expulsion after setting his school on fire. Towering at 6 feet 1 inch and weighing 12 stone, with an aptitude for physicality, he evolved into what he later termed a problematic man-child, a volatile force fueled by deep-seated resentment toward white society. The boiling point arrived on July 3, 1981, when French, alongside friends Leroy Cooper, Andrew John, and Ivan Freeman, were minding their business on Selborne Street near Granby in Toxteth, when 2 officers invoked the contentious sus laws, granting them unchecked authority over young black individuals, to detain and search Cooper. Incensed, French and John retaliated against the policemen, igniting the spark that erupted into the legendary Toxteth riots of 1981 in Liverpool's L8 postcode. These uprisings stemmed from centuries of systemic neglect, exclusion, and outright rejection endured by black communities. Echoing struggles in other urban centers, Toxteth's residents were confined to substandard housing, plagued by joblessness, deficient education, and meager public services, all compounded by entrenched institutional bias, relentless monitoring, and outright oppression of black youth. In the 1970s, intensified police tactics like sus and stop and search made law enforcement another adversary amid threats from racist skinheads, football hooligans, and white mobs. Back then, the police were simply another gang, with superior resources. What began as protests quickly intensified into chaos. Fierce standoffs where youths hurled Molotov cocktails and debris at advancing officers. For the first time on English soil, CS gas was deployed to suppress the rebellion, and French stood at the vanguard of the turmoil. He later described it as a cathartic unleashing of pent-up rage and strain. It was a release, letting go of the frustration and the tension. They'd never experienced that kind of ferocity. Recalling the moment, he spoke of seizing a bin lid and a makeshift club, rhythmically pounding the ground as he advanced, inspiring a wave of followers in a primal surge reminiscent of Zulu warriors. Everybody followed suit. It was like the Zulus. I've never felt anything like that, watching the enemy on the run. The violence raged for 9 days, leaving 468 officers wounded, 1 civilian dead, more than 570 locals incarcerated, and 70 buildings reduced to ashes, a dark chapter etched into Liverpool's history. The year 1973 brought a global fascination with martial arts, propelled by the meteoric rise of Hong Kong cinema and icons like Bruce Lee, whose films captivated audiences across continents. Drawn to the violence depicted on screen, French sought refuge and purpose at the Liverpool Shaolin Karate Club on Lodge Lane. There, he encountered Ronnie Colwell, one of the founding fathers of British karate. Gifted with natural talent, French flourished in karate, viewing Colwell as a surrogate father figure, the first positive role model beyond his kin. Their bond endured for 3 decades. French affectionately dubbed him his White Pops, hailing him as the most deadliest man he ever knew. Through this mentorship, Stephen French was forged into a lethal practitioner, learning not only to channel his aggression, but to what he termed professionalize his violence. He immersed himself in diverse martial arts, attaining a 5th Dan black belt in Shotokan karate, a discipline revered for its focus on control, explosive strength, and technical grace. He also secured a black sash in Laogar Kung Fu, a Chinese martial art known for its fluidity and agility in combat. This foundation launched him into an international career from 1978 to 1993, representing England and Great Britain under the mentorship of Tiki Donovan. He won gold at the home internationals, earned numerous regional titles, and reached the pinnacle as British, European, and world champion in kickboxing with WACO, the World Association of Kickboxing Organizations. And in 2015, his contributions were immortalized with induction into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame, etching his name among the sport's elite. In the aftermath of the Toxteth riots, as the narcotics trade surged, he soon turned his sights on the city's opulent drug overlords, extracting their ill-gotten wealth through coercion and brutality, a modus operandi that branded him the devil. By imposing these taxes on Britain's most affluent and influential criminals, he amassed fortunes exceeding £20 million. At the zenith of his operations, he orchestrated at least one such heist weekly, reaping vast sums in the hundreds of thousands for minimal effort. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches and 225 pounds, armed with championships in kickboxing and karate expertise, he was perfectly suited for the role. Clad entirely in black and masked by a balaclava, he and his associates ambushed dealers in crack dens and trap houses. Armed with nothing more than a kitchen knife, he recalled with grim satisfaction how a 17-stone drug dealer collapsed into terror, even shitting himself at the mere recognition of his captor. When I was a taxman, it was a destitute time out there. I was of the Malcolm X school, by any means necessary. I wanted to build a reputation and be known as a bad man. I'd lift up my balaclava and say, "It's me, the devil. What are you going to do about it?" But despite his hard man reputation, French professed adherence to the ancient Bushido code of the samurai, upholding a personal sense of moral justice in his pursuits. If you betray me, you must either sustain me or end me. No middle ground exists. It's a creed to live or perish by, ensuring fidelity to one's principles. These raids were no blunt force rampages but surgical strikes, laced with psychological warfare honed in the dojo. In one infamous assault on a fortified cocaine mansion, crews storming in like shadows, French targeted a defiant dealer, methodically shattering fingers and kneecaps with a hammer until safes cracked open.
I hit him precise, like a surgeon with a hammer. He begged, "The devils come for me," and the name stuck.
Another weekly levy turned infernal. Kidnapping 2 importer associates mid-handover, he doused one in icy water before flicking a lighter inches from his face. Fire and ice, he called it, coaxing 150,000 pounds from trembling lips without a drop of blood spilled. It was Malcolm X rules, by any means, but I never killed for money. That was my line. Yet even as he clung to this unyielding creed, the fragile alliances of the underworld began to fracture, pulling him toward an inexorable descent. No bond tested this code more profoundly than his fraught friendship with Curtis Warren, the audacious Toxteth lad who would ascend to infamy as Britain's Pablo Escobar, architect of a drug syndicate worth billions. His and Warren's paths intertwined in the riot-scarred cradle of Liverpool Echo, where childhood camaraderie forged in shared defiance blossomed into a perilous alliance. French, ever the visionary enforcer, spotted Warren's raw potential amid the post-1981 chaos and drew him into the shadows of the taxing trade. "I set him on his road," French would later confess in a candid reflection, a mentor's pride laced with the sting of hindsight. Together, they prowled the opulent lairs of drug lords, divvying spoils from midnight heists that swelled French's pockets to 20 million. Warren, the eager protege, absorbed the lessons of precision violence and psychological dominion, evolving from right-hand man into a global importer, channeling cocaine and ecstasy across continents in deals that dwarfed their early escapades. However, ambition, that serpent in the garden of crime, stirred conflict. As Warren's empire eclipsed their partnership, morphing him into a kingpin with fleets of ships and corrupt officials in his pocket, the old friends soured into opponents. Whispers of betrayal echoed through Liverpool's underworld. Unpaid tributes, encroaching territories, and grudges nursed over perceived slights.
We started as street kids together, became kings of our world, but it all turned to war.
French mused in his book, capturing the tragic arc of their rift. By the dawn of the new millennium, the Devilman's throne had begun to crumble. The 1990s taxing heyday yielded to a changed landscape. The heroin haze lifted, only for a flood of cheap firearms to arm a new breed of desensitized operators. Guns replaced hammers and balaclavas, rendering his code of controlled brutality an anachronism. "I gave up criminal activity in 1994, he affirmed decades later, marking the pivot point where survival demanded reinvention. No longer untouchable, he navigated a city where legends faded under tabloid scrutiny. Scarred by gun violence against his family, he redirected his ferocity into advocacy, campaigning to curb guns in Merseyside, public speaking, charity work, and his memoir The Devil recast him as a cautionary figure, warning youth against the path he once walked.
I'm seriously doing, I'm a serious anti-gun campaigner, and I campaign against guns from 2005 to 2013. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, my anti-gun charity was called Kazuna Increase the Peace Program. The patrons of my charity were Evander Holyfield and Ricky the Hitman Hatton. Yeah, I went to Las Vegas to see a fight. Yeah, and this is when I realized the power of TV.
Redemption's path, however, was no serene promenade. It was a gauntlet lined with the ghosts of grudges past. Having stripped fortunes from the underworld's elite, French became a marked man, his exit from crime only sharpening the blades of retribution. Bullets whistled through the night in ambushes meant to silence him. Knives sought his vitals in Liverpool's dark alleys. Even flames were unleashed in a bid to consume him whole. Petrol-soaked rags ignited at his doorstep, a diabolical echo of the inferno he'd once wielded metaphorically. Fame's double edge, however, proved fateful. In 2013, at 54, the specter of his past collided with the present in a blaze of irony. On February 21st, amid Liverpool's bustling city centre, a simmering feud with businessman Paul Smith erupted into chaos. French, Armed with a 90-pound imitation Sig Sauer air pistol bought that very afternoon and an 8-inch machete, confronted Smith at their shared offices in the Il Palazzo complex on Water Street over a money dispute, after Smith had threatened his life. The confrontation quickly spilled into the public lobby, where a receptionist watched in terror as French attacked Smith. After pistol whipping him repeatedly, French chased the bloodied man out of the office, unaware that the exterior was covered by CCTV. In a panicked attempt to retrieve the footage, he confronted the terrified receptionist, only to discover that the recordings were stored elsewhere. Realizing the evidence against him was out of his control, French knew he would soon face prison. About 90 minutes after the incident, a visibly agitated French, dressed in his trademark suit, was spotted near the Museum of Liverpool. Cradling an item wrapped in a handkerchief, he hurled it into the murky depths of the River Mersey. An off-duty officer witnessed the disposal, igniting a dramatic siege. Armed police swarmed, sealing off Liverpool 1 for hours, evacuating shoppers and tourists in a tableau of flashing lights and taut standoffs. At Liverpool Crown Court, French pleaded guilty to possessing an imitation firearm and a blade. Judge Stephen Everett condemned the hypocrisy of a man once fronting anti-gun and anti-knife campaigns, now caught wielding those very weapons. You took the gun to meet fire with what you thought was going to be fire. What you did was more akin to a gangster than a businessman. Sentenced to 3 years, French signed off with contrition. I sign off with an apology to the whole of Merseyside. Imprisoned at HMP Liverpool, the big house that had loomed over his youth, French faced the backlash of his legend. Remanded in February 2013, news of his arrival spread through the cell blocks, and that first evening, a chorus baying for blood of 250 hardened criminals echoed around B-Wing.
I could hear it. The baying for my blood. What it was they were gonna do to me.
Dawn brought reckoning. Shaving his head in ritual defiance, French strode onto the landing, a colossus reborn in vulnerability. Here I am, here I am. Who wants to see? He bellowed, his voice cutting the tension like a blade. The wing fell silent. No challenger emerged. The Devilman's aura, forged in decades of myth, proved an impregnable shield even behind bars. All these people that have been dying to get me and fight with me, you could have heard a pin drop. In the quiet of his cell, introspection deepened the cracks.
I was made to be a certain way. I've undone all that, and now I'm the way that I choose to be. And I feel strong.
Yeah.
I feel powerful. And I feel... There's a word in Japanese called kokoru. Kokoru means your spirit, your inner heart. Yeah. My kokoru is on fire with the Holy Spirit. That's the only religious spirit I'll give you.
Yeah.
You're right? Because I've been saved from death divinely several times.
Paroled in 2016, French emerged as the fighting preacher, channeling his past into redemption. Born again in faith, he led anti-gun rallies, mentored at-risk youth, and supported charities bridging Liverpool's divides. Once a feared enforcer, he now used his voice to warn the young of a desensitized, violent world, while his own journey, from prison to Anfield's director's box, stood as a testament to change. Now 65, Stephen French's ledger leans toward light. Outspoken on social media about rigorous honesty and community healing, his posts reveal a blend of vulnerability and resolve. Once akin to the devil, he reflects on his past with hard-earned clarity. Power can consume, but redemption remains possible. In the heart of Liverpool, his story endures, a reminder that even the most notorious may find a path toward grace.
I fucking hate drug dealers. I fucking hate people that sell drugs to children and their own communities. But I fucking love money. I'm here to relieve you of your cash. If you don't give me your cash, really horrible, nasty things are going to happen to you.
It's all a matter for you.
I don't want to have to harm you. I don't want to have to hurt you. But you're poisoning communities. You're killing people. And you're getting fat and rich off it, and that disgusts me. You disgust me.
If Stephen's story moved you, from the ashes of Toxteth to the light of redemption, Hit that like button to spread the word, and drop a comment below. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe to Dark Sleuth Secrets for more raw tales of survival, crime, and redemption. Until next time, stay curious and keep sleuthing.